All right, so you're a hard money lender, and a lot of my audience are first time flippers that don't understand how everything works. So I use hard money a lot. Can you kind of explain what a hard money lender is?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, that's a very broad question, but a hard money lender essentially just means that you're using somebody else's funds to fund your deal. So, it's the concept of leverage. And really, when people start to get into this space, they're wondering about hard money, private money, self funding, cash offers. You start to hear all of these terms floating around, but essentially just means using somebody else's funds to purchase a property, and most importantly, not conventional money. So you're not going to your bank and waiting 30 or 45 days to be able to close. Hard money is going to be a little bit more expensive, short term, but you're going to be able to close really quickly.
When I first started flipping, I was like, I guess all these people are rich because they're buying all these houses
Right.
and they're not getting loans from the bank. So I was super curious of where's this money coming from? And people actually, when I flip, they think that, oh, Ron, you're so rich.
Because you're making cash offers, but you're using somebody else's money
Someone
on that,
else's
somebody
money on
else's
it.
cash. Right, and that's a really good point. So there's so many new investors who get on the market and think literally the exact same thing. And especially with how hot the markets have been, when you were competing, 15, 20 people making offers, the new people were obviously intimidated to try to go in and compete against them because all they kept hearing was, I have to make a cash offer, I have to make a cash offer. And if
Right.
you don't have $250,000 sitting in the bank, how are you buying that house down the street with cash? And really the other side of that too is that even if there's people who have that money sitting there ready to purchase one property, why stop at one? And that's where the idea of leverage comes into play as well. And also being a little bit more risk adverse. So we can get into that in a bit, but the idea of using somebody else's money will allow you to leverage and scale, but it also reduces your risk as the borrower, which is really cool. And I like to point that out to our clients. Who we have clients who come to us who used to buy cash and now use hard money too. So that's always an interesting conversation.
My buddies who flip, who use cash, I always make fun of them because if you got if you got 200 grand, you can only buy one house cash.
Right.
But if you have 200 grand and you use someone like Kayla, you can buy three houses.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have to put on my loans, I don't have to put everything down. 10%, 20%. 20% is a lot. The most I've ever put down is 10%.
Right.
So I think we talked a little bit about the banks, and I was a wholesaler before I became a flipper, and we're making these offers to these people where they're expecting to get money extremely quick,
Right.
and sometimes in a matter of a couple of days.
Right. And that's the play as a wholesaler, obviously,
Yeah.
to go in and let somebody know they're going to have a really smooth, easy, cash-like transaction. But I'm telling you right now, these wholesalers are not walking around with their, pockets padded with cash when they're making these offers.
Right. So like with you, for example, what's like a typical like how fast do you guys close?
Sure. So we're pretty unique in that space, and that's honestly one of the most value add propositions that we personally have. But for us, we can close within 72 hours from start to finish.
Crazy.
It's very unique. So what we can do is close without third-party appraisals. And so that's right now been the holdup for a lot of people even using hard money, where if you still need an appraisal, you're still waiting usually a week or so, 5 to 7 days. Is that what you're seeing out here?
And there was times where you couldn't even get an appraiser
Right.
to do anything.
Is that
So
getting
you're
better,
like,
do you find? Have you noticed that getting a little bit easier?
Now, yeah. I mean,
Right.
we're sitting here, August, there's like nothing.
Yeah.
It's like crickets.
Right, it's
So
slowed
it's
down a
easy
little
to get
bit.
everything right now, but a few months ago it was like
Right.
I couldn't get an appraiser to.
And so on the,
Say
when
it's
you're
low.
when you're wholesaling, you want to be able to stay true to your timeline that you're promising somebody. So that's really important because as the wholesaler, you're making a promise to close on a property, let's say in 2 weeks. But you now need to go and find a buyer who can actually execute on that timeline. And so you can't go and contract somebody to take that property over if they don't have access to funds quickly. So that's where hard money or private money really, really excels, even if somebody plans to hold that property. So that's a whole other kind of game, right? So hard money can be construction loans where people are doing sort of a fix and flip play, or people who plan to hold the property. So even though the hard money is short term, they can close really aggressively and then refinance it, which is what you're focusing on more often now, right?
Yeah.
For that refi play?
Yeah, just the enough time to get it closed, to get it fixed, and get it sold, or like refi, like I'm trying to do one of my properties. I'm trying to refi out of the hard money loan into a long-term conventional loan. That's what it's for. It's for, short periods of time.
Yes.
Where you buy a property, a lot of the time distressed, and banks don't like to touch distressed properties. That's one of the reasons why they're so valuable. Is she just told you that she can close in 72 hours. That's really good.
I love how you light up when you say it.
Because most are like 7, 10 days, maybe even 14 days. I mean, maybe I don't want to put them on blast, but a major company that a lot of people uses takes weeks.
Right.
I don't use it. I like the I negotiate really good deals, and one of the reasons I can is because of people like Kayla. I can close it. I can get you paid in 3 days, especially like notice of foreclosures, notice of defaults, notice of sale. Sometimes the seller might call you and say, "Hey, my house is going
up on Tuesday and it's Thursday." Yeah. Right.
So you can't go to most hard money lenders. And I didn't know you guys closed that quick. But
right.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's been really instrumental in the growth and expansion of our company. And so just to give some sort of background on that and why we were able to do it that way is that we built our company from the perspective of other investors, other borrowers, realtors, flippers, not necessarily from the perspective of coming from finance. And so for us, we were able to point out like, hey, what are the pain points? If I went to somebody like you and said, what are the top 3 pain points right now when you're trying to finance a deal? One of them would likely be dealing with the time frame for an appraisal. And so for us, it was really important to take that feedback into consideration and then build our products and process around the borrower instead of just being, protecting our assets. Obviously, that's important, clearly, but really there's still some gray area there in the market to change it up a little bit and sort of disrupt hard money, which is, I like to say that's what we've done here. And so we're able to offer something that, makes people light up when they get to talk about it. It never gets old for me, I have to tell you. I do still love that.
So let me ask you, what are some of the common misconceptions you hear about people when they think of hard money?
Sure. So really the biggest one is that if you look up the actual true definition of hard money, it means funding based on a hard asset. That's why it's called hard money. And over the years, it's changed from being strictly asset-based to sort of a mixture of being based on the asset and the borrower. But truly, hard money should be based on, does this asset have enough value to lend against it? So when you talk about regular hard money or average hard money, I should say, and there's a component of experience required or background checks or credit checks, that's not real hard money. And I'm not hating on that platform. Obviously there was a rise in those checks because people realized they needed to create some, backstops while they were lending. So I'm not hating on that per se, but that's probably the biggest misconception, or people thinking that they need to have all of these documents in place to be able to get into a hard money loan. Average hard money lenders, ourselves included, we're not looking through people's tax returns. We're not doing employment verification. So we're just looking at somebody's liquidity today. Who are you right now sitting in front of me? Can you carry this loan? Can you execute? Can you exit it? Those are the things that hard money is worried about. So there's these misconceptions that it's going to either act like traditional lending, and so people don't bother even asking about it because they know, I've got terrible credit, I'm not even gonna go down that road, or I've got a background that maybe a little bit spotty, and so I can't be an investor now. The beauty of this, and honestly why I get so excited, is that I do believe that real estate is the #1 way to grow wealth and generational wealth. And the beautiful thing is that it doesn't matter where you came from, right? We're not asking somebody what their accolades are when we go to lend to them. We want to see, like I said, who is this person in front of me today? Do I believe in you being able to do the project? Does the asset make sense? Am I willing to take a bet on that asset? Then cool, let's do the deal. And there's people who have came to us in a short period of time that we've been open, that we gave them a shot on their very first deal, and already they've done more than one. And honestly, at the beginning, I was very hands-on with these clients, and now they'll still call me up and let me know how this has changed their life in such a short period of time. Only real estate can do that in that short period of time. And so opening up those doors and really removing the barriers of entry by using hard money is where it's at, and why I'm passionate about it, honestly.
I think you guys are gonna tear it up, because literally I've been doing this for 7 years and I've never had a hard money lender care or like explain it and like walk me through. Typically I'm just like Googling or getting a referral, and then they just tell me,
sign here and this is what it is.
Yeah. And you're just kind of like, okay, is this real? But I like it. I mean, it's the easy button, right? It's literally, this is what I send, and maybe you can tell me if this is how you gotta do it too. I literally send my hard money lenders picture link, my purchase price, what I think the property is worth, and my rehab budget. And I go, can I get terms? And I send it. And you notice I didn't have to get my credit pulled.
Right.
I did not have to show my bank documents like she was talking about. None of that. They literally just care about the asset. And I think you care about when you say you care about the person, I wondered about that. What do you mean you care about the person? What's a good candidate? What's a
Sure.
What's
So
a bad
we can,
candidate?
on paper, what we're looking at is the asset first and foremost. And so like you mentioned, we ask for all those same things, those same numbers that you're touching on, and we can create a term sheet based on that. And then, assuming that those, you know how to run your own numbers and they're accurate and they make sense, then our terms carry through all the way to close the same way that we've quoted you out. When we look at the person, we're looking at your liquidity. So we want to see that you have the ability to close the loan. So do you have enough funds to get through the closing?
Because you
bring
want 10%,
bring 10% down. Yeah. So we want to see that you've got, like I said, a little bit of skin in the game. You're going to have to bring some points down, so our fees, and be able to carry that loan through fruition. So we look for enough funds to carry through 6 months and to get your rehab started. So there needs to be a little bit of a nest egg there. And again, we don't have a minimum experience requirement. So sometimes that creates a bit of a divide between somebody who is ready to invest, but maybe they don't have the funds available. So we recommend that they partner up with somebody who can be sort of their capital partner in it.
Oh, you're cool with that?
Yeah, so and there's different ways that they can structure that. So my recommendation really is that they go to somebody who will be a true partner to them on the deal. So get on title with them. Again, we're not pulling credit, we're non-recourse, there's no risk in having somebody else go on title with you, but that shows us that that person that is willing to sort of back you financially really does believe in you truly. So we're not huge fans of saying, well, I'm just gonna go get money from this third party in a different state who I don't actually know. It's much, if you come to us and you say, hey, I'm gonna partner with my buddy Toby and we're gonna do this deal together, then like, okay, cool. We'll look at his bank statements, put both of your name on title, and then it's a partnership. Whatever y'all decide in the background is a JV. Do y'all do JV agreements much? So something like that, great, all day long. Love it. So, that just goes to show that, again, that barrier to entry is being reduced further and further, because just because somebody doesn't have money today to start investing in real estate, they can start to network and figure out what they're good at. So they might be really good at finding the deal, or really good at property management or project management, but their friend who's got some capital to deploy isn't. Partner up with that person, right? It's a match made in heaven right there.
It's good.
Yes.
Good stuff. So I'm brand new to real estate. Like I started real estate yesterday.
Watch some HGTV over the weekend. You're ready to go?
Yeah, cool. But I got this deal, and it's worth $300, and I got it for $150.
Love it.
I've never flipped a property before. Are you gonna lend me the money?
Yeah, if you've got the capital to close and carry it.
Yeah, I got 10%. I have. So what? I need $15,000.
So you need to have 10% down.
10%.
Your origination fee. So it depends on what lender you're using. Usually anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 points up front, or percent. People call them points usually.
Yeah. What's a point?
A point would be your percentage up front. So it's sort of like your fee for using hard money. Is what you're paying.
A point on like $200,000 would be.
It's
one
usually
point would be $2,000.
Right, 1 point would be $2,000, exactly, for easy math. Normally, if you can find 1 point money, go for it. But normally you're seeing, no.
I've never found 1 point money.
Yeah, but the norm that you should expect, I would say right now in our market is between 2.5 to 3.5.
I paid 4 my first deal.
Yeah, so that's because you were less experienced at that point, right? So that makes sense.
4 points.
And that's normal. You should expect to see that and really work on, we're kind of going on a side note here, but to that end, being okay with paying a little bit more money up front to partner with the right lender, somebody who's going to really invest with you. And by that, I don't mean necessarily, I mean, they're all investing with you monetarily. That's literally what the agreement is. But somebody who doesn't mind walking you through it, or that can be a resource, or can refer you to people. That's worth paying a little bit extra than going online and just, typing in who's a great hard money lender and dealing with somebody virtually all day long. If you're new, you want to be able to pick up the phone, talk to that person who's running your numbers, running your paperwork, underwriting your deal, because they're going to give you insight. We'll provide comparables to some. So if you're that brand new investor, if we go back to that example, we're going to run the comps on that, and you may come to us and say, hey, this is going to be worth $350 all day long. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. And we go and underwrite the deal. I'm like, hey, Ron, I don't know if you noticed this, but we're seeing this, this, and this. Did you take that into consideration? Yeah. And so we won't just flat out say like, this deal sucks, forget it, you're decline. We want to walk you through that and use it as a learning experience for everybody. We want you to know where we're coming from. We're not just arbitrarily turning down deals. But if there's a way that we can provide feedback, we may save you from still closing on a deal that doesn't make sense, or help you understand what we like to see on a deal instead of what you're bringing.
Yeah, I mean, see, it's a good point. If you bring a deal to a hard money lender and they tell you no, they're saving your ass probably, because
you want to know. You want to know why.
A built-in safety mechanism.
Absolutely.
By running it through.
Absolutely.
A lender later.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's such a good point. And I always find it interesting. I mean, I can tell a story even from this morning specifically on a deal that we had turned down over the weekend. It wasn't a terrible deal, just wasn't really fitting what our risk profile was for right this minute. And so the first phone call we got was from the wholesaler, who we've got a great relationship with, and we've done many deals with him. And he was pushing like hard, called me back probably 3 times this morning. Just to try and get this deal to go, which I respect and I understand. And he was polite about it and all good things. But he really had a hard time looking at it from our perspective, understanding that the market is shifting like crazy. Like, turn on the TV, take your head out of the sand. We all need to adjust, right? And so he just didn't like hearing no as the answer, understandably. Later on in the day, the client called me, and this is a repeat client and everything. He's got a couple deals with us, so it's nothing against wanting to lend to him. And the wild thing is the conversation with him was so much more refreshing than it had been previously with the wholesaler. And this is the crazy part, is that the wholesaler has, and I love wholesalers, that's how I got into hard money, through wholesaling, so I get it, but they have nothing to lose and everything to gain on these deals, right? We're taking all of the risk. So when they come to us and say, I don't think you understand what you're doing and you need to do better, you have to flip the script sometimes and say, would you put your money behind this deal? All things considered, it changes the tune a little bit. So, talking to that borrower who's been, investing for 10 plus years, super seasoned, he didn't even call me to try and convince me to lend on that deal. He goes, no, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I understand why you're turning it down. Let's chat about what deals you want to see next so we can do the next deal with you. Yeah. And that really shows a level of maturity and where people start to, just get better at their craft. I bet you your conversations would sound more like that now than they would have in the past. Yeah. And so the only way that you get like that as a borrower, though, is that you align yourself with lenders who will have those critical conversations with you instead of just hitting the declined button. It's the only reason why he understood where I was coming from, is because I was not the first lender to have that type of conversation with him.
And would there be another opportunity where I'd be like, okay, you wouldn't lend, but where would I need this deal to be at for it to make sense for you to lend? Sure,
and we definitely have those conversations, and sometimes it does mean bringing a little bit more money down, or trying to come up with a little bit more capital to show to qualify for it. So, really ultimately, at the end of the day, as a hard money lender, our goal is to see our clients succeed in that property. And while that sounds really warm and fuzzy and nice, and of course it's lovely, the reality is that we're in the business of churning money. we don't want to see somebody stay in it long term. We are not long-term lenders.
Right.
You know, our business model is such that we want to see you coming and going with deal after deal after deal. And so if we can identify that there's circumstances, and so this example specifically is that the ARV was quite high. It underwrote okay to that ARV, but in that specific pocket, the days on market were increasing for that price range. They were now in a jumbo loan space. So that's where we're seeing the biggest slowdown and the most price reductions is in deals that are over that like 650 mark. Jumbo loan range does change from area to area, but generally speaking, let's call it 650.
Yeah, okay.
And so for us, we're looking at that going, hey, this guy is a huge rehab. There's no way he's going to get that done in his first 6 months of the deal, which is what we aim for. Okay, fine. He can extend. That's not the end of the world. But, we're now trying to forecast what's that deal going to be worth 9 months down the road when he's already going to be in a smaller buyer pool arena. And we don't have a crystal ball to predict that. So like all day long, we're literally making educated, informed guesses on what's going to happen with these properties.
And I'm wondering, I wonder if you're trending like, I wonder if it's going to low or...
Right, and so...
If I was a lender, I'd be like, I'm going to bet this thing's going to keep going down.
Right, and that's what we have to do.
You know
so
what I mean?
we're underwriting for depreciation right now, absolutely. And most people, again, will understand that. This client, like I said, as soon as I gave him 3 minutes to explain where we were coming from, 100% on the same page, no problem, understood everything I was saying. And so to talk about appreciation and depreciation from an underwriting perspective, but also, as a borrower, you should know that when you're even underwriting, you're the first one underwriting that deal. You should be underwriting it before you call us. Do not let us be the person who tells you, yeah, go hard, go put your earnest money down. Don't do that. And we don't like that pressure either. You should know if that deal's a good deal or not. And so, but you need to take into consideration if the markets are turning down right now, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be buying, but you have to account for that. Yeah. There was a lot of people buying sloppy in the last couple of years where, you could do a horrible rehab. You could have don't even rehab it, do a horrible job running your numbers. And the scary thing that I'm seeing now is that anybody who entered the market during the last couple of years, they're used to that gravy money. Yeah. They think everything's going to be easy. And so now they need to flip the script on how they're running those numbers and understand that there was a built-in cushion on just about everything they were buying for the last 2 years. They may not have been rock stars. Just saying.
A lot of people gamble. We're here in Vegas, but I don't like gambling with my business.
That's a whole different situation, yes.
A couple of things I wanted to kind of like explain. We said the term wholesaler. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of want to explain what that is. It's a person who markets to sellers. They go direct and they negotiate contracts. Typically contracts where there's enough room in there to flip it and they make a profit. So they get a contract with a seller and they sell that contract to a flipper like myself for a fee. That's what that is. And we also covered EMD. Ernest, I'll let you explain what EMD is.
So your earnest money is the money that you're putting up front when you go to purchase that property. So you're going to the seller or seller agent if it's a listed property and basically giving them money up front through a title company. Don't ever give them cash in hand. Public service announcement there. But you are basically saying, hey, this is how sure I am that I'm going to be able to perform, that I'm willing to risk $100 or $10,000, and you're putting that money up front ahead of time. And so when I kind of did a stop check there and said, hey, don't look to us to figure that out, that's really important. You should not be looking at any lender to tell you if you're ready to go hard on a property. Unless you have an option period, then sure, go in. I don't know if you want to touch on what an option period is, but it basically gives you an opportunity to do some due diligence. And right now the markets might be shifting enough that there's room for that again. But traditionally in the last couple of years, you better be ready to show up with pen and paper in hand and buy that property on hand. So you need to know how to run your numbers. You don't have time to start shopping out your terms ahead of time before giving them that earnest money up front.
Awesome. All right. So one thing I was curious about was I noticed that you guys, in this market, I've seen a lot of lenders stop lending.
Right.
It looks like you guys are being more aggressive and getting out there and lending more. Is that what's going on?
I would say right now in this current market, we're happy to sort of maintain the growth that we've made in the last couple months. And so, part of that is staying active enough to keep a pulse on what's going on in these markets. And we have moved aggressively into new regions throughout Q1 and Q2 of this year. So just sort of digging deeper into those regions and seeing, how we can find quality borrowers, quality deals. That's really what our focus is right now. But you're right, a lot of people have fallen out or stepped aside strategically because it is a scary train if you're not able to adjust to what's happening so quickly in the markets. And so I think there's some people who've decided to just step back and sort of watch and see. For us, I think there's a lot of value in being active while the tides are sort of shifting, because the watch and see from the sidelines is not going to give you the same experience as playing in the game, if that makes sense.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. So we're strategically still in the game.
I take the same approach with flipping. Like, there's a lot of flippers that got out of the market. So what does that mean for me if I'm one of the only guys here in Vegas buying? I get all the deals.
Right.
And I'm underwriting those deals a lot different. I'm underwriting those deals to where I'm having massive profits and I'm having buffers and I can't lose.
The buffer part is the biggest part. So it's your best case scenario looks amazing.
Right.
But even if it doesn't go as hot or that depreciation starts to kick in on a higher margin, you're still going to do fine. And that makes sense. And that's, so somebody, I'm here for a conference right now, and somebody asked me today, what I'm seeing in terms of increased business with either the activity that we're doing, or are we seeing some of our borrowers stepping aside? And I said, really what I think is happening is that people who were previously buying up, gobbling up the market share, and, could basically, buy whatever they wanted while they were investing, they were really pushing the newer people out of the market. And so
deals,
right now, what I'm hearing and seeing as we're following up with some of our bigger players is that they're actually taking a breath and stepping out to try and build up capital, because they really are anticipating that things will start to soften even more. So they want to be ready to hit the water when there's blood in it, really. But what's happening instead is some of the newer people are finally getting a chance to jump in and actually go and pick something up. So I've sat there and said, because we do lend to newbies and experienced flippers all the same. And so, where we may have lent on that specific property for this experienced guy, we're just lending on it to this other guy instead now, So I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't felt much of a slow up yet, because the properties are still getting purchased. Properties still need to be sold. We're not seeing a huge increase in, distressed properties right now. It's not like foreclosures are out of control or any of that. But people are still getting divorced. People are still dying. People are still, downsizing and upsizing. And so even in this tumultuous train, people are still having to move in and out of houses. And that just opens up opportunity.
Yeah, some good points. What's that, Warren Buffett? When everyone, maybe you know the quote better than me, but
oh boy. Between the two of us.
Yeah, something like when everyone's running towards it, you go the other way. And now people are starting to back away.
Right.
That's when it's time to start to go more into
right.
it. Paraphrasing.
Something like that. Somebody can correct us after.
So you were a real estate investor before this, right? Were you flipping a little bit of wholesaling?
Yeah. So that's sort of a funny question. It takes me back quite a few years. So I've been in real estate and investing essentially my whole life, as I've mentioned before. So that really looked like getting into regular residential real estate back in Ontario, where I'm from, in Canada. And so just doing the regular sort of gig, showing houses, owner occupied. And soon as I got a taste for investment real estate, I was hooked. Loved the numbers. Never a numbers person in the first place. So don't let that be a barrier to entry. You don't have to actually be good at numbers. You have to love them. And so I tell my mom, I just like numbers with the money sign in front of it. Those are the ones I understand.
Right, me too.
And so soon as I really saw what flipping properties looked like and sort of fell into it by accident, and then realizing hey, I can rent this house instead of selling it to move, and running those numbers, that just became what I was obsessed with. And so, love long-term rentals. Still, even to this day, that's really what I'm the most comfortable in. I've dabbled in, oh my goodness. So back home, I did a laundromat. We still have a garage and gas station back there. Property management, which just went hand in hand with what we were doing. Back home.
You can't hear that.
Back
that
home.
accent. That's,
Yeah, I know. It was about time you called me out. Yeah. And so, that's really how I first got into it. But the crazy thing is that in Ontario at that time, there was no wholesaling. Never heard of a wholesaler. I never wholesaled in my life. There's no alternative lending. So every property I bought prior to moving to Texas was conventional, all conventional money.
They had to wait until
But so the thing is that back then people who were using cash were literally using cash. It was a completely different situation. And we're not going that far back. I'm talking like 5 years ago.
There's no wholesaling in Canada?
No, I mean not. So I'm from a city about 4 hours north of Toronto. As I moved out of Toronto, so I've been here about 3.5 years now. Right around that time, they had just started bringing wholesaling into the Toronto market, which is like the biggest metro near to where I'm from. Since then, I still follow the real estate market back there because we own properties there. Wholesalers have started to move into that town. And I will tell you one thing, it is, I don't want to use the word entertaining because that sounds sort of sadistic, but it's very interesting to watch a city be so reluctant to welcome wholesaling. Like the realtors are losing their mind out there. They just, they're not used to it. It's a different idea. It's a different method.
Even the ones
but
out here don't
they don't like it, but they get what it is at least, I mean, if they could start to do, like, if they could do a witch hunt all over again, it would be like a wholesale hunt happening back home.
Kill all the wholesalers.
Kill all the wholesalers, put them at the stake. So, and
I
know, right? Y'all are just solving problems out there. I don't hate it.
Yeah, there's good. Most people are doing it the right way, but there are some idiots.
That goes for every industry, though. Let's be honest. Every industry. People, there is an opportunity to capitalize on somebody's circumstance. And so there's the right way and the less right way to be doing that, frankly. But I do think that, if you're the kind of wholesaler who's going to be transparent and really seek to solve a problem for a person, I don't see the wrong in that, because there's people out there who have lost their homes through foreclosure or have gone a much more difficult road because they didn't have an alternative option available to them. And so, really, I think, like you said, if you're doing it right, there's nothing wrong with that. So that was sort of my experience back home. When I moved to Houston 3.5 years ago, I didn't move for my own work. I moved for my husband's work. But what I did was so transferable. I thought, okay, fine. Houston is the land. Houston and Texas especially, land of opportunity. And so got there and just went right back to what I'd been doing. So looking at investing in properties, and that's how I found out about wholesaling. And so I got hooked up with a really small little wholesaling team and kind of learned the ropes on that. Thought it was a scam when I first heard about wholesaling. So I, am one of the converted people.
Yeah.
And so got into that, and through learning about wholesaling, that's where I learned about hard money lending and alternative lending and leveraging. And so it's been a really, like, the term fast and furious for me. When I look back, that's a really quick 3.5 years to where I'm sitting now. But when you're really all in on something and you realize what it can do, I mean, it was like a miracle, coming from having to deal with just conventional, having access to all these different avenues to invest is crazy. And that's where it's like, there's really no reason why somebody who has the grit and the wherewithal can't do it. It's the wildest part, It's great.
Let me ask you, because I've always wondered this. Well, one day when I have my fortune,
The empire,
and I don't want to flip any. I hate to say it, but there may be a time where I'm like, listen, I'd rather just be the lender, and
right.
I lend my own money out. Could I do it through a company like a hard money lending company like yours,
sure.
or how's that work? Do you know anything about that?
For sure. That's a really, really good question. So what path you're talking about is very common. And we do see a lot of people who get into the private money side doing exactly that. Even myself included, obviously I represent a company that does much larger scale loans, but I've lent my own funds out as a actual private lender in the past. So there's definitely room for that. And so there's a couple different ways to get into that. And so, let's start by talking about the difference between hard money and private money. So the biggest difference between hard money and private money is where the fund's coming from. So it's an important question to ask the person that may be funding your deal, right? Asking them, where does the capital come from? Where's the red tape? Who's making the rules? What boxes do we have to check? So with hard money, those funds are usually coming from capital raised in the background. So think of it as sort of a front and a back process. So the back end is raising capital from investors, perhaps like yourself in this example, right? And those funds are being raised from several different people into a pool of money. And let's say there's, me in the middle. So I'm building relationships with you, you're giving me your money, and then I'm lending that out to the borrower at the other end, right? And so that's the traditional model of hard money. And so the beautiful thing with that is that there's generally way more capital to deploy because I'm not just relying on how much money you have, it's you and you and you and you. And if I start to run out, then I go find another you and you. And so you can really build and scale that model. But the downside to that is that now I'm answering to all of you and having to satisfy all my borrowers on this side, right? If you can picture that, right? And what your interests are and what you want to get out of the deal is not very conducive to what the borrower wants, right? You want the best return on your money because that's how you're going to make money now, right? So if Ron's putting up his capital, you're going to get an interest rate on that, maybe a little bit of fees, depending on the agreement. And that's going to dictate how much I can deploy those funds for. Well, the borrower wants the best rate possible, but so do you, right? And so with hard money, it can be tricky sometimes because you have to try and put together what your wants and needs are and the borrowers, and those don't always align. With private money, there is generally just one person lending their money out. So you and I are buddies. I know you have some capital that you want to put to work. I come to you and I say, hey, Ron, check out this deal. I want to buy it. Can I borrow 100 grand from you? And then we just make terms up. And so that can usually be quick and personable and negotiable, but Ron only has so much money in the bank. So what happens if he starts lending to several people? He's going to run out of capital, and now I've built one relationship, put all my eggs in your basket, and you can't lend on my deals anymore. Or I'm depending on one person. You want to go on vacation? Who's sending the wire to close my deal? Who's doing the paperwork, right? Or you could just wake up tomorrow and decide you don't want to lend anymore because you're freaked out because the markets are shifting or things are changing. That's what we're seeing a lot of right now.
Of people,
yes. Okay. So that's where
they're
no, 100%. And that's a risk in the private space and in the hard money space. So imagine in my original example of the hard money guy, I have 15 Rons that I'm getting capital from all day long, cycling that out. I have a pipeline, and that's literally what goes on, right? So I have a pipeline of deals that I've committed to that I'm going to lend on. I know what criteria, y'all like to see. So I'm really good at saying, yes, approved, let's go. Well, now the Fed raises rates or the next CPI comes out and half of you get cold feet and you're like, hey, Kayla, that's it, I'm pulling out. What do I do for all of these borrowers who now have earnest money up? They're ready to close on their deals. And so that's where it's very important to understand the structure of the lender that you're working with, right? Know where their funds are coming from. Know, who can approve and who can deny. What's that red tape look like?
So like if I have a deal and I have earnest money and I have the seller and I use a hard money lender that can pull out, like that's not good.
You can lose your earnest money in that.
I use in my reputation with that.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. All the domino effect.
It can be a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And so especially right now, I always recommend this. And even where, I'm very confident in our terms and our abilities, I still tell people when they have a term sheet or a quote from us to go and shop that out. Still build other relationships. You can have, you're naturally going to have, I'm sure you have your main hard money guy. Who, if you got a deal today, you know who you're going to call first, obviously.
Yeah.
But
the one you have the most,
most rapport with, or the better,
with.
Exactly.
I started paying 4, now I'm at 1.5.
Right, and so that's great. But if that guy tomorrow turned off the faucets,
which some of them have,
you better have somebody else to call.
Backups,
And so that's we've encountered where people are calling us. As let's say their second or third choice because they originally had built that relationship and now they're panicking. They need to close. They've put their money up. Nobody wants to be in that situation. As the lender and as an investor mindset person, I feel when someone calls me and is panicking, saying, hey, I've got $20K hard on this deal. I'm closing in 48 hours. I'm about to lose it. You know, we can underwrite quickly, but we can't have our arms twisted by somebody else's risk, right? And so I really, really can't stress enough, especially right now, to make sure that you have more than one relationship going at once. And we're not mad. We're not going to be angry girlfriends. Talk to other people. It's okay.
But when if you commit to a deal, is there any reason why it wouldn't, like, you know, like the market just goes,
Sure.
you know,
no, I mean,
rates go like this. So you're like,
yeah,
guess what? We can still do it.
Right.
But we got to do it at this because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah,
Or is commitment, or what's it?
It depends on the lender for sure. I mean, this is the cringiest version of this this question. But I mean, I've had somebody call me sitting in the lobby of a title company who had driven like 3 hours to get there. Why they didn't use a remote notary, I don't know, but they didn't. And they are sitting there calling us, panicking, because their lender, whom they had worked with on several deals, like had a great relationship with, called them and said, hey, our funds have run dry. We cannot close you today. And he goes, okay, well, should I let the title company know? You know, do I need an extra day? What are we going to do? No. We don't have funds right now, and like we don't know when they're going to come back.
Just basically just want to say, we're not funding your deal.
You're out of luck, is what they were telling that guy. And then, yeah, I mean, they felt bad for sure for that happening. And so that's an instance of the hard money lender running out of capital, right? And that is the scary thing on either side. It's less likely to happen with hard money. I will say that because, you know, if you have a good money manager in the middle, they are understanding the needs of the capital that they're raising and the money that they're deploying. But you know, none of us have a crystal ball. If we've learned anything, I mean, never mind just this year, but take me back to January 2020. Any of us predict what things would look like today? Of course not, you know? And so you don't really know what that can end up looking like. So having a good sense of, hey, this is the lender that I would use when I have 3 weeks to close and they're gonna give me great rates and I have time to get the appraisal, okay, cool. But also know who you would call to maybe pay a little bit more to get the deal done in 48 hours. Because paying a little bit more in points to get the deal done hurts a lot less than losing 10K in earnest money. Yeah. And your reputation and, you know, the potential profit of that project, right? There's so much more that goes into that. Have you had any deals that have gone sideways like that at the table?
No.
Look at you, superstar. Okay.
It's
good.
You know, I hope it never happens, but you know.
You can knock on wood here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I want to talk about too before we wrap was like, I don't know if I'm sitting here thinking like, did we discuss rehab fee? Like, 'cause I kind of want to like break down kind of like for the new person.
Right.
Brand new, just started real estate yesterday, but she got a deal. Wholesaler sent you a deal.
Right.
You want to buy it. Kind of like what the rates might look like. So let's say the property's worth $300. I'm under contract for $150. So it looks like a 50% kind of deal.
Sure.
What would I be looking at in terms of down payment, rate, points, and all that?
So in your example, are you doing a rehab on this property?
Rehab.
Okay.
30K rehab.
30K rehab. Okay. So what the average lender is going to do is take your purchase price plus your rehab. And that's basically what your total requested loan amount is.
So
okay.
150 plus 30,
so we're at 180. Okay. And so from there, we're going to work backwards and figure out what your points are going to be first. So again, 2.5 to 3.5, maybe 4, like you've paid in the past. You know, so they're going to take that into consideration. They're also going to look at what your down payment's going to be. So if we use simple numbers, let's say it's 10% down. So you're going to take, 10% off of the top. And then whatever that total is left, you're going to pay your origination points on that total.
So we're going to take 10% off the 180 or
the 180, yeah.
Okay, so 180, so 18 grand down I got to come up with.
Right.
And then we're going to use points.
Let's call it 3%.
3 points. So what would that be?
You going to do that math in your head?
5,600.
Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, we're going to make sure. Remember, we said we'd be. We're not necessarily the best at numbers. We get the deal.
Hey,
we get the deal.
Let's see how close I was. 180. We're doing minus 3%. 5,400.
5,400. That's not too bad. Okay. So You're going to be paying that up front with your down payment. And then you'll pay a little bit of prepaid interest. That varies from deal to deal, so we don't have to go too far into that. But that's essentially what you're going to be out of pocket. Now, keeping in mind, it's really important that you realize those are your lender fees or your cost to borrow.
Right.
That's not your title, your, all those other fees. We don't, most hard money lenders don't have like escrow fees or anything you have to put away in escrow, so you don't have to worry about that. And so those are the funds you're going to have available up front. Now, what you want to ask in this instance, and I don't know if you knew about this about us, but we are only charged about
boat. She says a boat.
But we're not talking about boats today, guys, properties. So with FlipCo, we're only charging interest on funds used, not on funds committed.
That's not
newbies out there, write that down. That's a really, really good question to be asking. So what that means is that when you close your loan with us, in the example that we were using, there's $30,000 that we're going to put aside for you to use as you rehab your property. And that is a reimbursement. So what that means is you need to start doing the work, and then we'll reimburse you for the work as you go. Through a draw process. Exactly. The beauty of it though is that, let's say, you're fronting the funds for your rehab for the first month and a half and you don't take any drawdowns, you're not paying interest on that money. And
I am right now.
Right?
With all my lenders.
Of course. And that's
do that.
right. So what you want to ask that question up front, but you can normally tell if you're looking at a quote or a term sheet, if they only have one interest rate or one interest payment that they're quoting, it's because they're quoting you on the total amount, whether you've utilized all of it or not. So picture this. Sometimes people will ask us for $80,000 in a rehab and only use 60. They've been paying for that full 80 the entire time. That's money out of pocket. Y'all, it's important to be able to understand what these term sheets mean. And so when we tell you to go shop them out, understand how to compare apples to apples, because that's a big one. If a $30,000 rehab is not going to be a huge swing, $100,000 rehab over 6 or 8 months, the difference in interest, if you're being charged on that full loan amount versus funds used, is, that's money in your pocket that you're leaving on the street. It's not good. Don't do that. So then the next thing that you want to know from the rehab perspective is, what does the draw process look like? And so for us, we live in a very digital world. We lend in 8 different states. We do not have boots on the ground in all of those states. And so all of the rehab draws are done virtually. So you're using a portal, uploading photos, receipts, proof of payment. We want to see that you did the work and that you paid for it already. And we don't have a rehab draw schedule either. So that's different for us. And again, one of those pain points we recognized with newer investors, they don't necessarily have the wherewithal to go and spend $25,000 and then get it reimbursed. So they can do their draws more often, so that they can keep that basically recycled. And then the really beautiful part is that we don't charge funds for any of those rehab draws. So if you need to do 2 a month, do 2 a month. We want to see. And the thing too is that because we're not charging interest on those funds, people will often stretch it as far as they can. They're not abusing that because they're saving money by not taking the money down right away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for us, it allows for some of those newer borrowers to get into it and be able to see that they're able to do the flip and, recycle their money a little bit quicker. But then when we see, they've done their first, second, third project, now they got some capital, they've reinvested it, they're able to carry that rehab further on those other projects. Like I would imagine you were probably, 10 grand in rehab on your first project compared to now is a completely different experience, And so we recognize that, obviously. That makes it a little bit easier, again, for those newer people where we're still protected, our interests are still there. But, if we have to run a couple extra wire transfers to keep your job going, that makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah, but with this deal that we're saying, that we're talking about. So far, we're getting a loan of, we're talking about 180, borrowing 180, but we have to put 10% down.
Right.
And then we have points to pay.
Right.
So far, this deal, the deal's worth $300,000, and I have to come up with $23,400 so far. There's also going to be interest-only payments, the duration of the loan, which are about what?
On that example, you're probably around $700 a month, depending on the interest rate.
That's really good. Yeah, so $700 a month. I like to be in and out of my flips in 90 days.
y'all should strive for that, but realize that that's not where you should be running your numbers.
Right. The market
That's
now,
that would be an amazing place to be for every flip. But, we're seeing most of our loans are out for about six to 8 months seems to be the average right now. And so I only stop you there to point out, when you're trying to figure out if you're going to have the liquidity to be able to carry this project through, even if it's a really light flip, consider 3 months your best case scenario, but be prepared to have to carry it longer.
Yeah, these are, and again, she's right. I'm talking about Vegas market where I know my contractor is going to be done. I know this is a 6-week project. I give them a couple weeks just to make sure everything's done. And we're in a Vegas super hot market. At the time, I know I should close that out within 30 days, but I run 4 months on my numbers, just in case it falls out of escrow, and four's good. Now I'm at like 7, just because times have changed.
Right.
The houses are sitting in the market a lot different. I should probably run 8, just so I know I'm safe.
Right. There's no borrower or lender who wants to see you get that close to the finish line and then start to struggle. Struggling meaning, you're making these interest-only payments and you don't have cash coming in yet on that property. So planning for the worst case scenario is going to be paramount. And that's where, again, a lender who wants to see you succeed in that project is going to make sure that you have the liquidity. Whether you've ran your numbers that way or not, we're going to. We want to see that you have at least 6 months in reserves to carry that property. And so, again, that goes back to, the lender doesn't want to walk you into something. And I've said to people, hey, this is a great deal. Love the asset. Fantastic. But you don't have enough cash right now to carry this through fruition. So what's that going to look like for you? What's your backup plan here?
And this, I kind of want to throw this out there. This is how I don't like putting my money for on my deals. Most of the time, I don't like doing it. I have a certain amount of money that I do that, but when I run out, I like using other people's money.
Right.
And it will, on this deal, it will kind of look like this. So the $23,000 that we have to come up with, there's probably, I'm going to anticipate, I don't know, I'm just going to go high, another $7,000. So $30,000 I have to pay for this loan. They're gonna let me borrow 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab funds. All I have to come up with is this $23,000 plus a little bit. Let's call it 30 grand. Mm-hmm. I can borrow that money, that 30 grand, from someone else, and partner with them on the deal. Maybe give them a little piece of it. Somewhat. She was talking about that earlier. So now I'm in the deal. I probably have 2 deals like this right now, where I have none of my own money into the deal, right? My portion was finding the deal and getting part of the money, and they come with the rest. So,
and that right there is that concept of strategic partnership. Like we kind of touched on that, but you're saying right here, you went out and you found the deal. You've got the contractors, you know how to run the project, you know how to run, the whole thing from start to finish. But that is a huge value to somebody who doesn't have those skills but has money sitting in their account, right? Maybe not quite enough to go and really be a true private lender in the sense of being first position lien holder, taking down the whole deal with you.
Correct.
But somebody with $30,000 in the bank who can, jump on board with you and JV that deal. And especially if you're willing to do a profit share. And, I think it makes sense for people, to be willing to do that, because then both parties have this real vested interest in it. If the markets start to take a shift, your other private lender is not going to want to bail on you. Like he wants to see, or she wants to see that really come to fruition, because they're in it with you,
Yep.
And so I do recommend having those partnerships be really, really transparent. Make sure that the other party knows the property, knows what the strategy is. It's fine if you're the running point on it, but you're gonna have a much better relationship, and they're gonna want to do it with you again, right? If it's a true partnership, soon as you make them money, they're gonna be asking you to go find that next property. I'm telling you right now, and that's how we feel when we see people paying off our loans. I'm wondering, hey Ron, do you have like another one in the pipeline? Because we want to do this again and again and again with you. This is a rinse and repeat, scalable operation, 110% all day long.
And this is how, we get to doing 30, 40, 100 flips a year, is by this process we're talking about. Guess how many deals I can do if none of my money's in it? Unlimited.
Right.
Just keep putting the deals together, find the money. We call that gap lending from the the 10% down and all the payments and utilities, we call that a gap lender.
Right.
So as long as you got a lot of gap money, you're just getting deals after deals. You got the contractors to do it. There's no limit to how many deals you can do because the power of hard money. It starts with the hard money, starts with the deal and the hard money lender.
Right. And then you just put the rest of the pieces together. And a big part of that is networking. And we've talked about leveraging money, but leveraging your network is really, still underestimated some days. And so going to meetups, if you're a newer investor out there, get involved on social media, join Bigger Pockets, get into the Facebook groups, go to those in-person networking events. And even if you're not a super social person, I'm telling you right now, that is going to be gold for you. You're going to get referrals to contractors, to deals, to lenders. It really still is a very people-based business. At the end of the day, I'm sure, you and I sitting here was because of because of a relationship, because of a networking event, And so, I can't say enough to that. And that's really been big in our business growing and being able to, get the word out on not just what FlipCo does, but being really passionate, obviously, about talking about hard money. If you're not in front of people doing that, they're not going to hear you.
Right, 100%.
Right.
All right. So thank you for coming. How do
Thank
people?
you for having me.
How do people get a hold of you?
So really the easiest way to get a hold of me would be going through Instagram. And so you can look me up at Kayla_lens. Our social media is wide open. So website for flipcofinancial.com or look us up on Facebook. Reach out. If y'all have questions and want to chat with me personally, I still love to hear it. So please, don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to jump on a call or come and see you the next time I'm in your neck of the woods. We'll see where we're expanding to next. But,